Hi everyone, my name's Tom and welcome to Not a Game Dev. Alright, so the title of the channel is a bit on the nose, but I think it's an honest enough introduction. So I'm not a game developer, but game development is something I want to try and learn, and we all have to start somewhere. I'm just starting with a fairly unoriginal name. So as someone who isn't a game developer, I've always wanted to try doing something like this, but as you can imagine there is so much to learn. Things like 3D asset development, coding, narrative writing, level design, sound design, and the list goes on. There is so much inside a game, but to me that's what makes the medium pretty unique. So I can do all these things in isolation, bringing them together in a game with your own ideas is pretty cool. Alright then Tom, so if you're not a game developer, then what are you? So while I have absolutely zero expertise in game development specifically, I do have some skills that I think are transferable to game development. Now I don't want this to be a list of things in my life, maybe that's for another video. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in hearing something like that, but here's 2 or 3 things that I think are relevant. So the first one is that I enjoy both creative and technical aspects of challenges. So for example, I like coding. I've done mostly object-oriented programming before, but I also enjoy playing around with other stuff like HTML and CSS and coding for front-end web design. For work, I do a reasonable amount of statistics in R, if anyone's ever heard of that, which I also enjoy. I know it's crazy that someone might like statistics, but there's at least one person. And creatively, like I do things like photography and composition and color theory. I've played guitar since I was 12, so I'm fairly musical. And I enjoy other things like building and DIY. But the point is that I like the balance between technical and creative, and moreover, I like bringing those two things together. And I think there's a niche for that kind of bridging of those two worlds, which I enjoy. Second, at the time of me recording this video, I'm actually preparing the end of my PhD, and I've handed everything in. There's just a small matter of defending it now, but that experience has given me what I like to think is useful. It's not a lot of people have it when they go into game development, and that is the art of patience. Now, doing a PhD takes many years, as does game development, and I already know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. I'm not going to make anything in 2 months. It's going to take me quite a while to learn these different things and develop my skill sets, but that's something that I already know and know how to handle and can already pace myself. It's kind of a mental challenge when you start doing something like a PhD, and I think that there's kind of like mental preparedness that I've gained from doing something like that lends itself to something like game development. Now I could talk a lot more about this maybe in another video if people are interested, but I believe the mindset and professional experience, like I said, is on average an advantage when you start to do a large project like a game. I mean, there's bad things about doing a PhD. I think anyone can confirm this who's done one. Crippling imposter syndrome is included inside there, but overall I think it's a general benefit. And number 3, I would say that the expertise that I've gained while doing my PhD is also pretty valuable for game development. Now, my topic was regarding spatial audio quality, particularly for immersive environments, so places like virtual reality or extended reality. And this has a mixture of computer science, acoustics, and psychology, so it's quite multidisciplinary. But with respect to game development, I think all of these help, either at a practical, theoretical, or conceptual level. So questions like what makes something good, i.e. its quality, or what makes a game immersive, are kind of important things to think about when you're developing a game, or even writing a book, or shooting a film. Now, I'm not saying I can do any of those things. Hopefully time will tell if I can. However, I do think I've gathered some good perspectives on these issues, and one of the biggest challenges people face when they take on something new that they don't know is they don't know what they don't know. And I'm well aware that there's a vast landscape of things for me to learn, but in some places I've got a good view of the terrain and how to navigate it, or at least ask the right questions. Alright, so enough about that. What's the plan? Well, I've had a concept for a game for quite a while, and my goal, simply put, is to learn how to develop that idea into something that I can play. Yes, for better or for worse, I've decided to use Unity, but debates about game engines are probably the least of my worries. I have a lot of other stuff to learn to start off with. But in addition to that, I thought sharing what I've learned on YouTube might give some structure, and if it turns out I get some feedback from the community, that would also be great, of course. If not, then it's no skin off my nose. I'm just kind of using it to help myself structure certain aspects of the development. One thing I want to try and avoid is that the end is there simply to justify the means. So what I mean by that is I don't want to get sidetracked by making videos, and there are many game dev vlogs on YouTube that are simply lost because developers either give up or they don't get the kind of views that they're hoping for, and they start off with the goal of getting views on YouTube in order to make a game, and that's their intrinsic motivation. But I don't really want to take it from that perspective. And yeah, doing a PhD, I know that you can't rely on external motivation. So I don't really want to end up in that pile. So while I'll make videos, I'd rather have them as kind of supporting material along the journey and not as the main focus. Okay, so what are we looking at? Over the past few months, since I guess around August 2025, I've been learning some of the basics. And when I say basics, I mean real basics. That being like how to model some simple things in Blender, how to implement character animations, how to texture, UV unwrap, designing interfaces in Unity, inventory systems, ability systems, character controls, and so on. And so what you're looking at now is essentially the culmination of those kind of experiments. And again, this is really just scratching the surface. Like I've by far learned like 1% or 5% to do with these different topics. Think of what I mentioned earlier. So I don't know what I don't know. And so these months have been spent essentially learning what I don't know, following YouTube tutorials, blogs, and a lot of trial and error. And this is not to be mistaken with actually learning those things, but simply recognizing these things exist, and yeah, I should put them on my radar, and these are some ways to do it. And now what I'd like to do is kind of like hit the reset button and share with you guys the journey of me actually doing these things in a more intentional way. So more literally what you're looking at on the screen is a microwave and a TV building planters and planting crops. But I think the topic of what you're kind of watching and maybe the game is for a later video. Alright, so what's next? Well, after these past 4 months, I've got a list of a few things that I consider fundamental to the game mechanics and the game concept, and these are things that I'd like to focus on first and want to get right and spend a bit of time on. So for the next videos, I might show some more development that I did over the past 4 months and maybe do a bit of an analysis of what was good and bad about it. Or another option would be to dive into the mechanics that I've just mentioned and what I've already started working on. But let's see. Let me know what you guys might be interested in watching. But yeah, I think we'll just see how things go and see what might be most interesting to kind of watch. So that's it for the first video. Who knows where this development process will take me? Hit the like button if you want to see some more. I know there's not been so much about the game itself per se, but I think kind of starting off with this kind of mentality and letting you guys know what my intentions are is good for me to get it off the chest and just get it out there straight away, and you guys all know kind of what you're in for. And if you want to see some more of that kind of content, so let me know in the comments if you think this approach is maintainable, or if you're interested in any of the stuff that I mentioned. And yeah, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.